Welcome to this episode of Eureka. We have with us a very interesting personality today, Professor Santosh Kapuria, currently the Director of SERC, Structural Engineering Research Center at Chennai.
Professor Santosh Kapuria is the Director of CSIR-Structural Engineering Research Center at Chennai. He is also the Coordinating Director of CSIR Madras Complex. With more than 25 years of work experience in structural engineering, Professor Kapuria specialises in solid mechanics. Besides being a Fellow of Indian National Science Academy, the National Academy of Sciences, India and Indian National Academy Engineering, Professor Kapuria has to his credit several awards for his outstanding academic performance and extraordinary professionalism. Most prominent among these are the excellent doctorate thesis in applied mechanics and the Swapna Chandra Memorial Medal for highest marks in design of structures.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us in this show.
Thank
We
you.
are very happy to have you here. I believe you had a very interesting childhood. You know, I think you learned swimming in Ganges, while most of us would have learnt our swimming in swimming pool. Can you tell us about your childhood? Where were you born? What kind of place was it?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I basically from a very small town called Navadip,
Navadip.
and that is the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya. And as you know, the Bhagirathi goes through that. And there is another, so you also have this ISKCON temple on Mayapur, which is opposite to Navadip. And so there is also there's a river which called Jalangi. The Jalangi comes and meets that Bhagirathi there, and that Sangam is there. So yeah, as you said, in the childhood we used to go to Ganges. It was a fun. And I learned swimming there, and once I actually about to be lost.
Oh.
I was almost about to be lost, and then my sister was somehow there, and she saved me.
Save you.
Saved me. You know, those days it used to be like that. I mean, things were not
A very hurried life.
Yeah. So
The childhood was actually childhood.
yes, that's right. So yeah.
That's nice. Can you say something about your growing up? You know, I mean, what kind of school you went? I mean,
The school that I went to was actually, my father was the secretary of that school. It was a government school, so normal government school where you have lots of people from all walks of life, from rickshaw puller to doctor to engineer would go there. And so this was the primary school. And from the primary school, I went to the high school. High school was really one of the best in the locality, in the complete district, I would say. We had one of our alumni became chief secretary of government of West Bengal, and there are many doctors, engineers came out of the school. And there were toppers, the board toppers from there. I became actually 11th in the higher secondary.
in those days it was 11th, not
11th, yeah. So, no, it was 12th.
12th, okay.
So I got the 11th rank
11th, okay.
in the state from that school,
Okay.
which was a big thing at that time.
11th rank
11th
in the
rank
whole state.
in the whole state.
That's very
from a very small town was a big thing, and so the schooling
Your mother,
was really
I
good.
think I was told, was one major pillar of your success.
Well, the thing is that my father was a extremely good person in the sense that if the kind of righteousness, the uprightness, the impeccable honesty. He was a businessman, so he did a small business. We had a small business, but these virtues of life, the right values that I got. Actually, I learned it from my father. the progressive thinking that he had, even though he was not educated, he had to stop his formal education because of family responsibilities at a very early age. I was really amazed when I look back. I feel amazed that what kind of progressive mindset he had at that time, and he used to allow free thinking. You know, a businessman from a small town allowing free thinking in the family, not imposing his things, was also a very positive attitude thing, and valued education. 3-4 things were very important in our house. One was, first is education, second is good food. He used
Education,
to take
good
care,
food, yes.
He used to take care that the good quality food, and every good shop, he used to always purchase from good shops, I mean things like that. And then adequate
Not
clothing.
fancy food, but good food.
Good food.
Not a fancy food.
Not
That's
fancy
important
food,
point,
yes. And then adequate clothing, I mean normal, decent clothing, and then values. So these 4 things were extremely important. It was just inbuilt in this thing in the family, and that is what we learned from him. Unfortunately, when I was in class 8, in fact ending class 8, I lost my father. It was due to, so this was due to kind of brain hemorrhage.
When a family like that loses the main breadwinner, the family goes through a really tough time. I'm sure your mother should have been really a very strong person to have sustained that family and brought you people to this level.
Absolutely, that is where my mother's role comes in. The kind of grit she showed to ensure that all her children, we are 4.
Four people, okay.
So we were 2 brothers, 2 sisters, right? My elder sister, both the sisters were elder to me, and then myself, and then my younger brother. And this family of 4, and then including my mother, 5. The grit she showed to ensure that all of us get education was remarkable. I mean, we had nothing. And I remember that I got a job offer that time. I just, after I passed 10, somebody said, why don't you, somebody suggested to my mother that why don't you put him, to a library, he will do some job, and you can earn some money, some earning. She said, no. I mean, it is really remarkable for her that how she managed. Of course, my elder sister came in, because my elder sister got a job that time, and she is the one who supported that initial period of kind of a storm.
Yeah, I mean, lots of families in India, survive because of strong women in that family who ensure that children get education. We should remember them today. In your childhood and school days, is there anybody who has been your role model, a teacher who has been inspiring, passionate, or some relative who has been very passionate, who had sort of put the spark on you?
Teachers that we got are amazing. And they provided me free tuition. In fact, I must acknowledge their contribution to what I am today. And I remember it was a Bengali medium school, but somehow I decided that I will study in English. At least the science subjects. So the books were not there in the school. I also didn't have enough, to have fresh books. So my headmaster bought the books, English books, for the library of the school, and then told me that you take it. So this kind of support we got. So as I said, in terms of role models, my father, in terms of the values of the life, he was my role model. In terms of science, I had my uncle, who was basically that time the director of the Doordarshan in Calcutta. All India Radio, Doordarshan, whatever is that time that was together. And so to the family, he was the man, everybody was looking forward to him, and he was very valued in the family. So I also thought, I should become something like him.
It's a I should say a very colorful life. A father who can inspire values, a mother who could, take you forward, teachers who cared you like their own children,
Yes.
a relative who you can look up. It's a very, very colorful and interesting life. But we may have to take a small break and then we'll come back and continue this discussion. Don't go away. We are having a very, very interesting discussion with a very interesting and colorful personality. We'll come back after a break. Welcome back to this episode of Eureka. We have with us a very special guest, Professor Santosh Kapuria. 11 years of experience in Engineers India Limited and almost 13 years of teaching experience in IIT Delhi. And today, the head of SERC, CSIR in Chennai. Thank you, sir. We are having a very interesting conversation. I looked at your biodata. You seem to have worked on very, very, very interesting areas. Let me start with something that sort of struck my eyes. Biomechanics. Can you tell us something about it? What were you doing? What was it?
Yeah, so this, I went to Stanford University in 2010 as a Fulbright scholar. In fact, let me tell you, from engineering to get a Fulbright
It's not that easy.
fellowship is not very easy. Anyhow, so I went to Stanford, and here was this professor, Charles Steele, in the mechanical engineering department in basically mechanics division. He told me, Santosh, you are very strong in mechanics. Why don't you solve this problem? This is a problem which is bugging me since long. So the problem was like this, that there is a theory behind our hearing. How
Our hearing, how we hear sound.
How different animals, including human beings, they hear different frequencies and identify different frequencies. And it turns out that it is because of the particular structure that our cochlea has. And so there was a scientist called von Venkateswaran who had given this model, first model, because of which he got Nobel Prize.
Okay.
That how does the cochlea actually deciphers this frequency.
How the particular structure in the cochlea ensures that certain
that
frequencies
can be extracted and heard actually. Yeah. So that model was doing fine for whatever animals people experimented with and things like that. But here was one animal called gerbil, and there people experimented gerbil, which is a kind of rodent basically. And people experimented with the cochlea and then found that what they get from the experiment do not match with what the animal actually can hear and do not match with what the model proposes. So all the three things are different.
So what the theory says, what your experiment shows, and what actually the animal exhibits when you are doing with the live animal experiment.
All three are
different. Okay.
All three are different. So
a real
here
confusion.
There's a confusion, right? And moreover, there are two experiment groups. One was Northwest University, another was another lab in the US. The results between the two experiment groups also differed by a lot. So therefore, there's
a royal confusion.
There's a royal confusion.
Good. And they throw you into it.
And then Professor Charles Steele told me that you are, why don't you look at this problem? So I looked at the problem for 15 days, and then I told him, you see, there is a basic problem. The experimental curves show that so they did some testing on the cochlea, and they put some load and find out what is the deflection, right? Now, so what they are showing is that if the load increases, the deflection increases, and the deflection keeps on increasing. Whereas, or the stiffness actually increases.
Okay.
Whereas the shape of the gerbil cochlea is kind of an arch. And as you know, the mechanics, those who are interested in mechanics, they will understand that when you put an arch and put a load here, as you put load, it softens. So therefore, the stiffness should reduce. I said, this I cannot understand, Professor, still I am really not able to understand this. So, he just did not say anything. He kept quiet. He said, let us go to a restaurant. Santosh will have good soup. That shop has very good, restaurant has a very good soup and all that. We had soup. We never talked about this problem at all.
That's all.
Right? And so again another 15 days went by, and after few days then I told him, I think I have some clue. Okay, he also didn't say again, he kept quiet. Okay, so another couple, another week or so, then when I was found about that, I said, I want to share with you now. Then he said, give a presentation.
Okay.
Okay, so there used to be a weekly meeting in that group. So I was asked to give a presentation. When I presented, he actually was this
Dumbfounded.
is it. This is it. So he was so excited, and this was probably one of the Eureka moments that Professor Charles Steele, the topmost person.
It's
in
not
this
just
area.
a simple Eureka moment. You were able to sort of revisit a discovery made by a Nobel scientist.
Yes.
And then find a revision for it. That's certainly a great Eureka moment. That's a great certainly Eureka moment.
Absolutely.
Another area that I found very interesting, which I think is also a key area, perhaps the India would be facing in the next few decades, is burying pipelines. I think you also worked on that issue of when you bury pipelines, the issues connected with it. Can you explain to our audience what are the challenges? What's it? I mean, basically you have to dig, put a pipe, that's all.
Yeah, so that's not the common this thing. There's a very interesting story here. So I was in Engineers India Limited, and so there was this one particular line which was about 36-inch diameter. It's a huge pipeline, was to be laid, gas pipeline, by GAIL, Gas Authority of India Limited. So the common sense, the common pipeline engineer would take a pipeline as a pipeline and think that there is a gas. So there will be some pressure, and you just design for the pressure.
So basically you design the shell to withstand the pressure of the gas that will be moving inside.
That's right. So now that, and in fact, and so now what is happening is, because of the safety requirements, these pipelines are buried, and there is a earth cover about 1 to 1.5 meter.
1 to 1.5 meters.
5 meter above this thing, and so you have to design for it. And so what the engineers did is that they also thought that I can take that as a uniform kind of pressure, and design it. And I take the maximum pressure, I design it for that. So earth also is giving a pressure, I design it for it. Okay, so and this came to me for a review. I rejected it. I said this is under design. Then
there is something flaw in it, something
a flaw,
bad.
And it created, because those, I understand the contract was awarded or something, the pipelines were bought. Once you buy the pipelines, it is difficult to change the thickness, you have to all those things. There's a huge thing. I was called to the head office of this thing, GAIL, and I was a young engineer, but my boss, Dr. S. Sengupta, I must take his name, he's another role model to me. He just said that you are the person who can defend it, you go. I said, fine, do one thing, you take an egg, okay, and try to break the egg by putting pressure like this, okay, and I will take another egg, I'll take a very fine pin and little pressure I will put, it will break. So now you tell me that you will tell me that I have given lot of load, lot of pressure, but still I could see it didn't break, whereas a little load can break it. So shells are very bad in bending, because the earth pressure is not uniform actually. You are assuming it uniform, but when it becomes non-uniform, the behavior
is very different.
So then they realized, and they said, okay. So they didn't go further. So that was another interesting thing.
We may have to take a small break here. We are having a very interesting conversation. He narrated to us two very interesting Eureka moments from his own life. Very captivating, very enthralling. But we have to take a small break. Don't go away. Come back after this break. Welcome back to this episode of Eureka. A person who grew up in a very small place in West Bengal, today heading a very important institute of this country, Professor Santosh Kapuria. I want to ask you something. I mean, you have been a teacher for almost 13 years. You have been teaching in a very premier institute, IIT Delhi. What you think is 3 important challenges in higher education today?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, I can, because I have been associated with engineering, so I can only talk about engineering education. Today the things are changing rapidly. That the purpose for which children are coming for engineering education is not necessarily to learn engineering. Unfortunately. So, therefore, it's really a challenge, and how do you really take care of that? One of the ways you can take care of that is to create opportunities for the students to get absorbed in engineering jobs. And if you have to do that, then you have to do really high quality engineering in the country. And today's this thrust of our the present Prime Minister of this Make in India has to be tied up with high technology which is indigenous, trying to do it here itself, so that the jobs we create are high value jobs, and that our engineering students get attracted to those kind of jobs rather than going into finance. I am not saying they should not go, but the training that we give is not
for engineering.
Is for engineering, and we are not getting benefit of that, particularly in IITs and good NITs. This is the situation. So,
one point that you are making is in India we should have a concentrated effort to generate high quality engineering opportunities.
Absolutely.
That is how the India will progress. That's how the engineering students can be attracted, and then we can actually have a brain power, and Make in India we can make it success. That's a very important point. Sir, next.
Yeah. So, another thing is that this is also linked to this, is that the compensation that you get in terms of pay package. For example, one should not equate research with bureaucracy and then trying to say that everything is same and then you must get the same pay package. So, this kind of flexibility should come into the system, even though we understand that there are government institutions, but then the proper incentives to do well in research.
And thirdly, anything else you want to add about education that you think is very important for us to keep in mind?
Another thing is that I think the autonomy of the engineering institutes have to be, there are sacrosanct. These must be taken as completely sacrosanct aspects, that let the educators handle themselves.
You have been interacting with young people for quite a long time. I mean, as teacher, as researcher, you should have had a lot of. What would be your message to the young India?
My message to young India is that the country needs you. Why I am saying so is that when I look at my children, their school, the present generation, it definitely shows there is a tendency to go abroad and settle there, and and there are reasons for that, and we must not. There are valid reasons. But at this point of time, I would say there are opportunities emerging. Country needs you.
From taking over this institute, the Structural Engineering Research Center, which is part of the CSIR, what do you think are important challenges for the structural engineering? What are the important things that you are focusing here today?
That's a very good question, and it has been, at the right time it has come. So, just look at the recent failure, the collapse of the flyover in Calcutta. So, here was a flyover which was being constructed, and during construction stage the flyover fell, and we lost 35 lives, precious lives, and somehow we have to give values to those lives. I mean, where did it, where are we going wrong? I have been telling it at all the forums that it is high time that we need to install health monitoring, structural assessment, health assessment and monitoring abilities in all critical infrastructure. There has to be some kind of sensing system in the structure inbuilt, so that if there is a major problem is to come, then the right signal goes at the right time, so that you can save lives and save the structure. And this is possible. And today,
and you say it's possible.
It is
not,
possible.
Yeah, okay.
And ACRC, I have done work personally, and ACRC has also had the technology. But what we need is the policy interventions. For example, even in this flyover, if there was a policy that at the construction itself you can monitor the construction by putting sensing, which is there in practice in different countries. You can see what is going to happen, go there and do it. So, in the long run, the lifetime cost of the structure comes down.
Fine. We had a very, very interesting conversation, and I think the last point that you made is also a very important point for this country. When we are expanding our infrastructure, whether it is roads or ports or airports or other public infrastructure,
Bridges.
Various structures we are sort of expanding, and we need to expand given our population is expanding. And we need to bring in development to the people. We need to expand structures, but those structures have to be safe and lasting long. And so we need a very robust policy which will ensure that these structures are safe right from the building time. And our guest today is a key person who can help us in achieving that. Thank you, sir. Thank you for this excellent opportunity to have a conversation with you. We had a very, very excellent and interesting conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.